Greetings, everyone. Fru here. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about Gemini 3 and anti-gravity. So Google has been on a tear lately with the releases, and the industry is talking about what they've done. I'll jump in here just with a quick walkthrough and some commentaries around what these capabilities are. I've been a big fan of AI for the longest time, and OpenAI and Anthropic and Google are definitely on the frontier of what's happening, pun intended. Let's take a quick look at this, and then I'll give some commentaries as we go. In front of me, what Gemini is. If you come in, you can select the fast model, you can select the thinking model, which would be Gemini Pro. And the quality of Gemini Pro is highly improved. I typically don't use Gemini as my primary LLM. That would be Claude, and second would be OpenAI with ChatGPT, and Gemini would be third. But this might change things around. So you can come in to say, all right, and about Gemini 3. What I've always loved about Google's approach is their deep research is excellent, and their ability to generate and work with images, in my opinion, is second to none. I wouldn't have OpenAI generating images for me. It can, and it sometimes do good image generation, but it tends to be slow. So Google has always been my go-to area for generating images. So here with a simple blog post, you can see it thinking, coming up with an initial hypothesis, deciding what the article content will be, and then it will go ahead and generate that article. So that is Gemini 3 in action. And one of the things people really love about it would be the image generation. So I can say something like generate an image to go with this. Keep it simple. So that's something you might want to do. And you can see here, this is loading Nano Banana, and it will go ahead and generate that image using Nano Banana. And the speed is always very impressive to me. Similar to, if you compare this to ChatGPT, it's night and day in terms of what Gemini can do, again, in my opinion. This is what a lot of folks are raving about. What particularly interests me is not just Gemini 3, but how Gemini 3 can be embedded into Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Sheets and all the ecosystem that Google has. Even Google Photos. I'm a big user of Google Photos. Being able to just talk and edit photos right at the fingertips becomes extremely powerful. So here it generated this image of Gemini 3. It's going with, I think that's the Gemini mission, and when it came down, and apparently I think that's the theme it's using. So extremely capable. Now, one of the other big announcements that came along with this announcement was anti-gravity. Gemini, anti-gravity, off to space. I think Google is playing on that. Even though I'm not a fan of the name anti-gravity, it's like, it doesn't roll off the tongue in a smooth way. Anti-gravity, it just seems there could be a better name. This reminds me of when Google came out with Bard. Even before Gemini, it used to be called Google Bard. And Bard, I think if you think about the English or Irish lore, where you have the bards, which were the sages, the smart people that will read literature and share it. And so good thing they did not continue with the name Bard and they went with Gemini, which I think is inspiring. Anti-gravity, I don't know if they're going to stick with this forever. It doesn't really convey to you this is an IDE or whatever this is. Maybe it's a new category defining tool. So anti-gravity is what it is. I've been a big cursor user for the longest time. I used to use Visual Studio Code, switch over to Cursor, and anti-gravity is just a fork of VS Code. And this will probably give Cursor a run for its money. Now, I haven't moved my workflow over to anti-gravity yet. I had a chance to just install it. Unfortunately, I didn't go through the install process, but just to give you an idea, if you get this installed, this will show up on your desktop as such. And the feel would be very analogous, very similar to what you would find on Cursor. So not a lot of differences. And here you can clone a repository, open up different repository. So I have a repository here, which I use for thumbnail generation. And I wanted to just take a sneak peek at the intelligence of this. So let's actually open up that repo. And to my left side here is the code that generates thumbnails for one of the channels. And in here, if you're familiar with VS Code, that's exactly the same experience you're getting in here. So nothing new, nothing to write home about. Now, what's interesting is this whole idea of being able to toggle between the IDE, which is what we're seeing here, and then the Chrome browser. And I'll talk about that here very shortly. So in here, you can see the customized layout. You can move things around. You can hide that and bring it back. And then you can open up the browser. Let's go up to files, GitHub repos. I think something is missing from here. So chat, let me ask this. What is this? As a matter of fact, I've been liking, what is this code base about? Can you explain it to me in details? All right, I'm gonna think, open up the code base. Now, one of the things I want to call out here is this is using the Gemini 3 Pro models. So you can switch from, there's GPT open source, Claude Sonnet, and GPT-3 low and GPT-3 Pro high. So Google is definitely not monopolizing this. They are making the other models available, and nothing dramatically different with what you're seeing here versus what you're seeing with Cursor. I think the difference will come down to how performant and how accurate these models are. If I was the Cursor team, just given how much they've grown, I will be very skeptical about this, because Google has the might, they have the depth, they have the bank and the pocket, they have the engineers to compete. Here, it's analyzed that, it tells me what this code base does. It's a Python code base. One of the things I always love to do with these models, let's try this. Can you give me any suggestions, at least 3 suggestions to make this code optimal, fast, and more performant? Don't break any existing functionality. Keep everything as before. Just give me a better optimized code. Ideally, it should run at 50% faster than it currently runs. So that's my prompt going in there. And one of the things I'm always curious about is how fast is it? How fast is it? So it's analyzing, and it should come up with that. Now, what I'm going to do while this is running, this is what I was hoping for. So what you can see now, let's dismiss this, is this concept of artifacts. And Cursor did introduce this for a while. So it's taken my ask, it's creating a task list to walk through, and then you can see it at some point going through the task list and hopefully checking things off as it goes. And this is a little bit new compared to how Cursor has always done it. Cursor will give you a list here, and then I would always use separate extensions to manage my task list and such. But what we're seeing now is Anti-Gravity is doing a little bit different. The task list, your project plans, the artifacts are almost first-class objects. So you can come back and iterate through this, which I think is a very compelling way of looking at it. So still thinking, I won't let this go through, but just to give you an idea on, I think Google is doing something, they're onto something here, and I think I'm liking this. So it's analyzing, implement parallel batching. So these are the optimization task lists, and then at some point it can go through and walk through those task lists. Let's see the implementation plan. It comes up with a goal, and I think I'm liking the goal. It's going to verify that and then run that. So that's that. If you give it enough time, it will keep thinking. So here it tells you the number of artifacts is created. So 2 artifacts, a task and the implementation plan. Let's see the planning. It's going through planning. If you don't want it to plan too much, you can make it go fast. So I love that. I've always encouraged folks using these tools to make sure everything is in Git. I think I've said this more than enough time that when developing with these agentic tools and agentic development frameworks, make sure everything is in Git, because to me, today it's Cursor, it's Cloud CLI, it's Gemini, it's you name it. But if you don't have everything backed up in Git, you might end up losing code, because if, assuming this messes up whatever it's doing here, I can go back to my existing code. So I have that in mind. Now, I want to open up Agent Manager. This is another experience that's pretty unique to Gemini and Anti-Gravity, unlike Cursor, which Cursor has been my development environment for the last 1.5 years, just to tell you how long I've been using Cursor. So in here, in this agent mode, you're simply chatting. So think about like you're bold, think about like you're lovable. It gives you that very intuitive interface for developers to interact with. And you can start a new conversation like I did. You can use the playground. You can open up an editor. Let's actually try that. So that gives you the editor, but we can also come back to the playground. Let's say, let's build a tic-tac-toe app. Obviously, you're going to want to use this for more sophisticated use cases, but in this case, we're just going to one-shot a tic-tac-toe app. And then there's also the concept of workspaces here, which are good. And then there's different workspaces for your app. I gave it the one prompt. It's looking through that, it's thinking, analyzing, comes up with a task plan. Again, this is that idea of everything is artifacts driven. So once your task has been created and implementation plan is created, it will go ahead and build that. And that's one of the things I really love about this Gemini anti-gravity application. Let's see, can we review changes? We can open up the editor, we can open up that. Now, the last thing I want to show here real quick is this idea of the anti-gravity browser. So I'm not developing a web application, but if I were developing a web application, because Google obviously has Chrome and they've tied that into this browser, you can have a scenario where you're developing a web app, it spins up the web app, comes in here, runs through the testing, does all the testing for you, validates that. If there are errors, it goes back and fixes. So your IDE, or traditionally what we call the IDE, is now tightly coupled to with the browser. And I think that's an interesting approach. In the future, I'm going to do a demo to show that in action, because I do have some few applications that are tied to the IDE. And it might be worth showcasing that as well at the future time. So let's open up the file. Let's open up the implementation plan here. So here's the implementation plan. Build a visually appealing tic-tac-toe web application. So very detailed and documented. Again, in the cursor world, I had a completely separate extension I used just for managing this task and managing the plans and such. And having this as a first-class object here, I think becomes very compelling. You can always switch back, go to your inbox. So here are the different things that are being worked on. It's building a tic-tac-toe app that's running. You can see, oh, it's asking for some input. Let's open that. What does it need from me? So just send an input command. I'm going to accept that. So this is pure YOLO mode. I didn't tell it what stack to use, so it's just one-shotting it. Let's go back to the inbox. This one is, so it didn't make the changes, so it made all the changes. It found some critical issues, and I can open that and see what those issues are. You can actually make comments. Let's see. This is good. Let's see. Now, I wonder who has access to these comments from a collaborative perspective. Set up the pie. Let's open up the thumbnail generator. So this was another app. I built this one many months ago using Pillow. It's been a while for generating thumbnails. Pretty cool. I want to go back to my inbox here to see what's happening with the tic-tac-toe app. Still running. You can imagine this takes a couple of minutes, couple of hours. Let's accept that for this to run. But eventually it will give you something that works. Google is definitely onto something. This is just a first look at it. I still have most of my workflow in Cursor. I use it a lot. Everything is also in Git, but just going off what the industry is talking about. So here you can see this one task is completed, it's on to the next one and on to the next one. So I love this. You can spin up these agents in the morning, power off your computer, go off to do something else, come back 3 hours later, and your work is done. Your work is done. So very compelling from what Google is doing. Now, what are my takes? I think we are still in the first inning of all of this. If you can imagine that the models we have today are the worst they will ever be. The use cases we have today are the least they will ever be. So today's Gemini 3. The ChatGPT 5.1 wasn't as impressive. Claude Sonnet 4.5 came out. But just imagine when we have this conversation at Gemini 5, Gemini 10, what would that be? Would we still be opening up the IDE, or would it be something completely different at this scale, at this pace we're going with? Pretty fascinating, but kudos to Google. I'm going to spend some more time. And if I end up moving my workflow from Cursor over to Gemini to Anti-Gravity, I will let you guys know, but I am impressed. And my hope is to spend some more time playing with this. So hopefully this gives you some idea. If you haven't tried it out, I would encourage you to go out, obviously, and try it out. Google is very formidable, and it's going back 3 years ago where they were, everybody was writing them out, to the fact that they have such a resounding release. It's very commendable. So as always, this has been Fru here with Demo Hub, just taking a quick look at Gemini 3 and Anti-Gravity. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, share this with somebody that might get value out of it. Links to all of this will be in the description below. I'll see you in the next demo.